What is up, guys? I'm your friendly neighborhood web war fanatic, and this will be my Nightcrawler hero review for Marvel Champions. Let's go ahead and jump into it. Super duper quick, before we jump into my categories, I do want to take a look at Bamf right here because this is a very key card in Nightcrawler's kit, and a lot of his other cards revolve around this card. So Bamf right here is a zero cost upgrade. Nightcrawler has 3 copies of Bamf in his hero kit. It says attached to an enemy, max 1 per enemy. As in hero interrupt with the defense keyword, so it does count as Nightcrawler defending. When an attached enemy attacks, you can discard this card and declare Nightcrawler as a defender without exhausting him. So basically, whenever you attach Bamf to an enemy and that enemy attacks, you can discard the Bamf. Nightcrawler is now the defender of the attack, and with the official rulings from 1.6, Bamf does also count as Nightcrawler, making a basic defense. So any card refers to your hero needs to make a basic defense, Nightcrawler is doing that with Bamf, and he is using his defense stat of 3 here whenever he triggers the Bamf. If you enhance his defense stat with like an armor vest, which gives you +1 defense, and you trigger Bamf, that does calculate that as well. So Nightcrawler will be defending with the 3 + 1, which is 4, with a Bamf if he uses it, and he has an upgrade like the armored vest. Almost all of Nightcrawler's cards revolve around Bamf, so I did want to explain a little bit about what it does and how there are 3 copies of it in his hero kit. Let's jump back over to the charts and get started with this hero breakdown. So for every single hero, I have 5 major categories that I evaluate them by, which is by their thwarting, attacking, survivability, economy, and versatility. And then for each major category, I have 3 subcategories that I think are the most important when evaluating that major category. So for thwarting here, we have the stat line, control, and the cards. The first subcategory that I have for thwart is the stat line. I think that the thwarting stat line is the most important stat line in Marvel Champions, and it's very important to have at least a thwart stat of 2, so you can thwart off initial threat on the main scheme or thwart off side schemes that start off in play in scenarios. So if we take a look at Nightcrawler over here, he has a stat line of 2 thwart, 1 attack, and 3 defense, and that 2 thwart is exactly what we're looking for. 2 or above is very good, 1 or lower is not good, so having that initial thwart to start off every single game is really big, so I definitely gave him a check mark here for the stat line for thwart. The next subcategory for thwarting is the control. So can Nightcrawler, does he have a way to mitigate threat and to flip down safely to heal, or just flip down safely to trigger alter ego actions? And he does have a card, but I did put an asterisk here because I don't think it's the most reliable card. So if we take a look at his kit here, he has a zero cost event here called Port Away. As an action, you can discard a copy of Bamf from your hand to change forms and ready your identity. So even though this is a zero cost event, it's kind of a 1 cost event because you need to discard a copy of the Bamf from your hand, so you're losing a card from your hand, which could be a potential resource. After you do that though, you can change forms, so you can flip over to Alter Ego and then ready up, so you can make a basic recovery, and then you can use your manual flip once per turn to flip back over to hero form. So that's kind of a way for Nightcrawler to flip down safely, heal, and then flip back over. However, Nightcrawler only has 1 copy of Port Away in his deck. So if you draw it at the wrong time, you may not be able to utilize it because it's an event, right? So if you draw it in a turn that you don't need to flip down, then it goes away and you may not get it back until another whole deck cycle. Because of that, I don't think it's the most reliable way for him to flip down, and he has no other way to control the threat whenever he's in Alter Ego or like mitigate threat from going on a main scheme. Like he has no way to confuse a villain or just prevent threat from going on a main scheme with any of his identity specific cards. So I went ahead and gave him a point here, but I did put an asterisk, right? It is not the most reliable way for him to flip down and get a heal, but technically by my own charts, he does fulfill this category because he does have the way to flip down without threat going on the main scheme, and then exhaust a heal and do alter ego actions, and then flip back over to hero form without any extra threat going on that main scheme because he never ended the turn in alter ego. So let me know what you guys think, if he deserves a point for his category. I went ahead and just gave it to him, but I can totally see the case of him not deserving a check mark here. And then for the third subcategory for thwarting, we have the cards. What is Nightcrawler's like thwarting event? Does he have good thwarting cards in his hero kit? And he definitely does. He has a very, very strong card called Scout Ahead. It's a 1 cost event. As a hero action thwart, you can remove 3 threat from a scheme. So at worst, bare bones is just a 1 cost event that removes 3 threat from a scheme. That is very, very good, very, very efficient. And you may also discard a copy of Bamf from your hand. So if you have a copy of this card right here in your hand, you can discard it, and then you can remove 3 threat from a different scheme. So effectively, it could be spending 1 resource here and then another resource. So 2 resources to remove 6 threat from amongst 2 different schemes, right? That is very, very good. Usually 2 for 4 is what we're looking for. Unfortunately, you aren't able to remove that 6 threat from one scheme. It has to be 2 different schemes, but most of the time that's always going to be useful because you can remove 3 threat from a side scheme and then 3 from the main scheme, or just 3 from 2 different side schemes, right? There's going to be a lot of opportunities for this Thor event to get its full value, so I definitely think it's a very, very good Thwarting event. So he definitely gets a check mark here for the cards for Thwarting. So his overall score for Thwarting is 3 out of 3. If you consider this asterisk here, you may say maybe it's a 2.5 out of 3 or a 2 out of 3. I went ahead and just put 3 out of 3 for simplicity's sake. But yeah, Nightcrawler definitely is a very strong Thwarting hero. Let's take a look at his next major category, which is going to be his attacking ability. In my opinion, attacking is Nightcrawler's weakest category. So the first subcategory that I have for attacking is the burst damage. I do think that burst damage is very valuable in Marvel Champions because it helps you avoid stuff like retaliate, and some villains punish you if you can't burst them down in one go. My favorite example is Expert Venom Goblin, because on stage 3, whenever you review him, he deals you 3 face-down encounter cards, so you want to burst down that stage in one go. Nightcrawler unfortunately does not have burst damage in his kit, and I do think that burst damage is quite difficult to make up through aspect cards. So if we take a look at his hero kit here, his attack events, he has a Port and Punch and Teleport Drop, and he also has Tally Ho, which is not an attack event, but it does do damage, right? So let's take a look at the attack events first. So he only has 2 copies of Port and Punch here, which is a 2-cost event. You can do 3 damage to an enemy, and then do 3 damage to each enemy with the Bamf attached. So at most, it's going to be 6 damage to a single enemy, but you can do 3 damage to all the enemies that have Bamf attached to them. So it's good like AoE area effect damage, but if you want single target damage, it's just going to be a 2 for 6 at best, which is good, but 6 damage is not a lot of damage, and for only having 2 copies of this card in his kit, that's only going to be 12 damage even if you play them both on the same turn. Then his other attack event, the Teleport Drop, this is the stronger attack event. It's a 3-cost event. As a hero action, you can discard a copy of Bamf from an enemy and deal 8 damage to that enemy and then stun it. Now, this is very strong and very cost efficient, right? It's 2 for 8 damage, but you do have to discard a copy of Bamf from enemy, so it's kind of like a 3 for 8, but you also get a stun, so it's still very, very good value. If Nightcrawler had 3 copies of this card in his kit, I would definitely give him a point for the burst damage, but unfortunately, he only has 1 copy of the Teleport Drop. So 1 copy of this and 2 copies of the Port and Punch. That means even if you play all of them, it's going to be 6 plus 6 plus 8, which is 20 damage, which is not a lot. And it's pretty difficult for Nightcrawler to play all 3 of these attack events, right? The 2 Port and Punches and then the 1 Teleport Drop in one turn. But even if he does that, it's still only going to be 20 damage for that turn, and we're looking for a little bit more than 20 damage when you're playing his 3 best attack events. The other source of damage that Nightcrawler has in his kit is the Tally Ho, which is a 1-cost event. So the way that Tally Ho works is that if you have Bamf attach an enemy, the enemy attacks, you can discard the Bamf, declare Nightcrawler as a defender, so he is now basic defending that attack. Then you can play a Tally Ho as a hero response, and then do 3 damage to an enemy, right? Because you can do 3 damage to that attacking enemy, and return that copy of Bamf to your hand. So even though you're paying 1 cost to play Tally Ho and do 3 damage, you're getting a Bamf from your discard pile back to your hand, and you're refunding that 1 cost. So this is actually a super duper high value card. So Tally Ho is pretty much free to play. It's only 1 effective resource because you're playing that card from your hand, so you're losing the card of Tally Ho from your hand, right? This is a great card to do some cheap damage. However, you cannot trigger it on demand. You need the villain to attack you in order to trigger this card. Usually that will be during the villain phase. If you're playing an aspect like Protection, you can force the villain to attack you by playing a card like Taunt or something like that. But that's not a reliable way for Nightcrawler to increase his burst damage in a single turn. So I will not give him a point for the burst damage here because he has 2 copies of Tally Ho, which is not that reliable. 2 copies of Port and Punch, which is decent, but only 2 copies is not the most that we're looking for, and only 1 copy of Teleport Drop, which is his big attack, but he only has 1 copy of it. So unfortunately, when you're playing Nightcrawler, I do feel like that his burst damage is lacking, so he will not get a point here for the burst damage. The next subcategory that I have for attack is going to be small instances of damage, and in Marvel Champions, I think that small instance of damage is very important because it helps you ping off tough status cards from the enemies. So if a hero has piercing, I would attribute to giving them a point here for the small instance of damage. Small instances of damage also help you deal with minions, and small instances of damage also help you deal with stun. So if your hero is stunned, you can just exhaust to attack, remove the stun, and still play other attacks to still get some damage off. And if you get exhausted by nasty encounter cards like exhaustion, you can still get damage off because you have so many ways to do damage. But unfortunately, Nightcrawler does not have small instances of damage in his kit, A stun status does stifle him. If he gets exhausted, he is pretty stifled whenever I'm playing him. He does not have a reliable way to do damage, at least in his hero kit. You can substitute that with aspect cards, but at least in his hero kit, he does not have that many ways to deal with minions. His best card for doing instance of damage is going to be the Thwarting Punch, because if you have Bamf attached to multiple enemies, you can do 3 damage to one enemy and then deal 3 damage to each enemy with the Bamf attached. However, if Nightcrawler is stunned, if you place the event, the whole entire effect of the event is going to be canceled with that stun, so it won't bypass the stun. If he's exhausted and stunned, then he won't be able to play this event at all. And to get Bamfs attached to multiple enemies, I found that if you're playing in a high pressure situation like Ronin or a Venom Goblin, it's difficult to attach Bamfs to a bunch of different enemies. The best way to help him do that is going to be his identity specific ally, and we have her right here, Day Tripper. She's a 2-cost ally. After she enters play, you can search her deck and discard pile for a copy of Bamf and attach to an enemy straight away. She also deals 1 damage to each enemy with a copy of Bamf attached. So this is a great way to ping off a bunch of toughs and do damage to a lot of different enemies, but he only has 1 copy of this card in his kit, and this is actually the only way for Nightcrawler to attach Bamf to an enemy directly. Every other card in Nightcrawler's kit or every other effect that he has, like the rapid teleportation or the action is alter ego, can tutor Bamf to your hand, but it's only limited once per phase. So being able to play Day Tripper and get an ally out and then attach a Bamf with her effect is massive value, but she's the only card that can kind of do that. So unfortunately, Nightcrawler does not have small instance of damage, because whenever I'm playing him, I do feel like he's very stifled if he gets exhausted or if he gets stunned, and I do feel like he has trouble dealing with minions. The last subcategory for attack is going to be the cost curve for Nightcrawler's attack events. Does it feel smooth playing his attack events? Whenever you're playing Nightcrawler, does it feel like he has the economy to play his attack events whenever he needs them? And he definitely does. I mean, the Thwarting Puncher is a 2-cost event and deals 3 damage at worst. Do 6 damage to a single enemy if you have 1 Bamf attached to one enemy. If you have multiple Bamfs attached to multiple enemies, it can do AoE 3 to a bunch of different enemies. The Teleport Drop here is a 2-cost event. It deals 8 damage to an enemy and stuns it, but you do have this card copy of Bamf, but that's still fine if it's 3 costs for 8. The Tally Hole here, I mean, we talked about it earlier, but it's a 1-cost event, but it gets a Bamf back into your hand. And then you also have his Prehensile Tail right over here, which is his 1-cost upgrade, where you can exhaust this card and generate a wall resource for an event. So this is a very, very cheap resource generator for events. And I mean, all of his attack events are event cards, right? So that can generate a resource for Tally Hole, Thwarting Punch, and the Teleport Drop. So Nightcrawler definitely feels very smooth whenever you're playing him, and he could definitely get those attacks out easily. However, even though he did get a point for that, his overall score for his attacking ability, in my opinion, is going to be a 1 out of 3. Let's move on to the next major category, which is going to be his survivability. And Nightcrawler is a hero that has massive survivability, but surprisingly, he only got a score of 2 out of 3 for me because he's missing one of the subcategories here. So let's take a look at the first subcategory here, which is going to be the alter ego / hero card, so the identity card of Nightcrawler. In my opinion, in Marvel Champions, it's very important whenever you start off a game that you already have survivability printed on that identity card, because if you don't draw into your defense events or if you don't draw into any allies to defend for you, does your hero still have a way to survive on that first turn if the villain gets really lucky and attacks you a lot? And Nightcrawler definitely does. He's probably the best hero for this. So if we take a look at his alter ego ability right here, it's an action. You can search your deck for a copy of Bamf and attach it to your hand, limit once per round. That is huge, because then you're tutoring the Bamf straight to your hand and you can attach to the enemy right away. And when that enemy attacks, you can declare yourself the defender, defend for a massive defense stat of 3, and then not exhaust yourself. That means if the enemy attacks again with an assault or another attack activation, you can still exhaust Nightcrawler to defend that attack. So already on round 1, Nightcrawler can defend 2 times with this defense stat of 3, which is really, really good. He also has his rapid teleportation, which is an action here. You can spend 1 resource of any type to return a copy of Bamf from your discard pile back to your hand. This will help you tutor Bamf even more so that you can play them down and just get more survivability with these amazing Bamfs helping him teleport all around the board. So yeah, Nightcrawler definitely gets a point for his identity card. If I could give him 2 points for this, I would. He is really, really good with his identity card, being able to give him that immediate jump in survivability. Next, let's take a look at the cards in Nightcrawler's kit. Does he have any cards in his kit that add to his survivability? And I mean, he definitely does. And it's going to be, the major card is going to be that Bamf card that we talked about right here. It's a 0-cost upgrade attached to enemy, max 1 per enemy. So you can just attach it during the player phase, then just leave it on there. And as the hero interrupt defense, when the attached enemy attacks, you may discard this card and declare Nightcrawler as a defender without exhausting him. You don't have to do it, right? It's not a forced interrupt. So you can choose when and where you want to trigger the Bamf and teleport out of the battlefield. That is very, very strong. And Nightcrawler also has Kurt's Cutlasses here, which is a very good upgrade all the way down here. It's a 2-cost upgrade, counts as 2 restricted cards. Nightcrawler gets +1 attack, +1 defense, and gains Retaliate 1. So getting that extra defense there is huge, building up his defense to a defense stat of 4. And whenever his defense stat is 4, whenever you trigger Bamf, you do get to calculate that enhanced defense stat of 4 every single time Bamf triggers. So Nightcrawler definitely has really good cards in his kit that add to his survivability. But the last subcategory for survivability is going to be the healing. Does Nightcrawler have a way to reliably heal without exhausting himself, right? If he has a lot of ways to ready, or if he has an upgrade that can ready him up every single turn, then I would still give him a point for that, because that means that he can still use his basic activation to thwart or attack and get the ready right back up, flip down to Alter Ego, and then recover, right? However, Nightcrawler does not have any cards in his kit that will aid him in healing unless he uses his basic exhaust. So if we take a look at his hero kit again, the closest card would be Kurt's Chapel right over here, which is a 1-cost support. Kurt Wagner gets +1 recovery, so if you get the support down, Nightcrawler will have a recovery stat of 4 instead of 3. And as an Alter Ego response, after you make a basic recovery, you can exhaust Kurt's Chapel and then choose a player and then draw a card. So pretty much you can draw a card every single time that you make a basic recovery, which is very good. But if you're exhausted and you can't make that basic recovery, or if you need your basic activation to do something else like thwart the main scheme or attack a minion, then you won't be able to trigger this effect. So it is a good card where you can trigger it, but if you're dealing with a lot of pressure, it may be difficult to get the full value of this card. And the other card in Nightcrawler's kit that will help him out a lot is going to be the Port Away here. We talked about it earlier, but it's a 0-cost event. You can discard a copy of Bamf from your hand, change forms, and ready your identity. So yeah, if you play this card, you can thwart in hero form, play the Port Away, flip down to Alter Ego, and then you're readied up, and then you can exhaust usually basic recovery, right? But like we talked about before, since this is an event, it's not the most reliable card if you need that recovery on a specific turn and you don't have the Port Away. And since Nightcrawler only has 1 copy of this card in his kit, I cannot give him a point for that because I already gave him a point here for the control for thwarting. So I can't give him the point here for survivability. You could argue that he should get the point here for survivability and not for the thwarting, but I'm not going to do both because he only has 1 copy of that card. So overall, Nightcrawler does have really good survivability, but if his hit points drop and he gets really low on life, I do find it pretty difficult for Nightcrawler to heal back up compared to a lot of other heroes, but he is very, very good in mitigating all the damage. So if you can prevent taking damage in the first place, then you don't need to heal anyways, right? However, a lot of the more difficult scenarios like Ronin will put on so much pressure that you do need to heal. So I do value this subcategory a lot, and unfortunately Nightcrawler does not have it, so he gets a 2 out of 3 for his overall score for survivability in my opinion. The next major category that I always look for in a hero is going to be their economy. So the first subcategory for economy is once again the identity card, the Alter Ego / hero side of the card. I think that having the economy on your identity card is so important because you can start off the game with extra resources and already play things down on turn 1 and not feel stifled by not having the resources to play cards. And Nightcrawler has an amazing Alter Ego that we already saw earlier. So he has a hand size of 6, which is very normal for Alter Ego, and he has a hand size of 5 hero form, which is also the norm. But he has an action here in Alter Ego where you can search your deck for a copy of Bamf and then add to your hand, limit once per round. So you draw up to 6 cards, then you can use this action, get a copy of Bamf to your hand. Now you have 7 cards in your hand on turn 1, which is huge, so you can play a lot of different things down. In his hero ability, Rapid Teleportation, that's not as good because you have to spend a resource on a type to return a copy of Bamf from your discard pile to your hand, so you're switching out a resource for a Bamf, so you're switching out 1 card for another card. But I would not have given Nightcrawler the point here for his identity card's economy if he only had this ability, but the Alter Ego ability is definitely what I'm looking for, so he gets a check mark for his identity card having economy. The next subcategory for economy is going to be the cards in Nightcrawler's kit. Does he have resource generators? Does he have resource cards? What does he have to improve his economy over the course of the game? And he definitely has a very good resource generator in his prehensile tail. So it's a 1-cost upgrade right here, and you can just exhaust it to generate a water resource for an event. I like this card a lot because it's any event. That means Nightcrawler's identity specific events. That means for aspect card events. That means for attack events, defense events, thwart events. It's very, very versatile, and for only 1 cost, it's very effective. And since it's a resource, not an action, you can use it during the villain phase to generate a water resource to play those defense events as well. So Nightcrawler definitely gets a point here for the cards in his kit to improve his economy. Lastly, the cost curve of Nightcrawler's cards. He has very, very cheap cards, so he definitely gets a point for this as well. I don't think he has any 3-cost cards in his kit, right? 1 cost for a Chapo, 2 for the Cutlass, 1 for the Tail, and then 2 for his identity-specific ally, Day Tripper. And then all these cards here are also 2 costs or cheaper. 0 cost Port Away, 0 cost Bamf. I do want to add that the cost for a lot of these cards, you do have to discard a copy of Bamf from your hand, right? Like with the Scouted Head, you may discard a copy of Bamf from your hand to remove 3 threat from a scheme. The Teleport drop, discard a copy of Bamf from an enemy. Nightcrawler's cards do feel a little bit more expensive than what they look on paper, but overall he still feels very smooth and his cards are still pretty easy to play. So he definitely gets a check mark for me for the cost curve for his economy. And I do think that Nightcrawler is a very rich hero. So whenever I play him in perfect defense, it's very fun because even though he's defending a lot during the villain phase, he's still able to play a lot of cards during the player phase and impact the board. So let's take a look at the final major category for every hero, in my opinion, which is going to be the versatility. And the first subcategory for that is going to be the in-game versatility. And I do feel like that Nightcrawler does have in-game versatility because he can rush, he can build, he can play a tempo style with the perfect defense. But I do find that if you are not using Bamf to declare Nightcrawler the defender attacks, he does feel not as strong. Utilizing Bamf a lot and making sure that Nightcrawler is using his defense stat with the Bamf is key to optimizing the way that Nightcrawler plays. So even though he does have in-game versatility, he kind of does really want to rely on Bamf, even though you don't necessarily have to. So I did give him an asterisk here, but I will give him the point because you technically don't have to use Bamf, right? You still can just have allies chump block for you, but you're not going to be getting as much value if you're not using that Bamf. And the way that his kit is built, huge shout outs to the developers. Nightcrawler was designed so well in a way where you really want to use a Bamf, and if you don't rely on it, he doesn't have as high of an impact and does feel a little bit lackluster. So you do want to lean into a specific playstyle using the Bamfs a lot, but I am going to give him the point because he doesn't necessarily have to do that, but he just really wants to. The next subcategory for versatility is going to be the cancels. Does Nightcrawler have a way to cancel encounter cards or get rid of nasty treacheries like an advance to prevent the villain from scheming and ending the game? And unfortunately, Nightcrawler does not have any cards in his hero kit that can cancel encounter cards, so that does give him less breathing room to do crazy stunts. So he won't get a check mark for that category. And finally, does Nightcrawler have versatility across different aspects? And I definitely think that he can play in different aspects, right? He can play a rush style in aggression, do a lot of damage. He can play perfect defense in protection. He can play perfect defense without perfect protection. And he can play in justice, mitigating a lot of threat and thwarting a lot. He can play in leadership, recurring his super duper powerful identity-specific ally in Day Tripper and getting massive value by getting a lot of Bamfs out with her effect. Or he can also play a Voltron type of build in leadership because he has such strong ways to base defense himself with Bamf. He doesn't need the allies to chump block, so allies can just stay in play and attack and thwart a lot for him. So Nightcrawler's overall score for versatility, in my opinion, is going to be a 2 out of 3. So Nightcrawler is missing 1, 2, 3, 4 check marks for me, but he does have 2 asterisks right here for the thwarting and for the versatility. So the way that my chart works is that if a hero is only missing 4 or 5 check marks, they get an A tier evaluation. I'm just going to stay true to my chart here, but I do want to add that this chart is not the end all be all. There are nuances to the game, so even though Nightcrawler fulfills this chart in this certain type of way, he may not be an A tier hero. I do think that at best, he's on the lower end of being an A tier hero, and at worst, he is a B tier hero. Even though he scored very well on my chart, when I'm actually playing him in a practical sense, I don't find him as powerful as other A tier heroes. Now, to emphasize more into that, when he's facing against Magneto or any other villain in the game that's weaker than Magneto, I think that he outperforms himself. I think he plays very well and seems extremely powerful. But against the 2 most difficult villains in the game, Venom Goblin and Ronin, I do feel like that Nightcrawler struggles a lot and struggles more than other A tier heroes. So even though he may defeat a random villain like Ultron or Magneto more easy than other A tier heroes, he struggles more with certain villains like Ronin and Venom Goblin than what other A tier heroes would struggle with any villain. So take that as you will. I'm going to go ahead and rate Nightcrawler as an A tier hero, but I can easily see the case of him being in B tier. Let me know what you guys think. Do you guys agree or disagree with this evaluation? I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Hey guys, it's your future web warrior fanatic right here, and I am editing this video, and I feel like that I am being incredibly biased for Nightcrawler because I really like this hero, but I do not think that I can give him an A tier here. So I took away the checkmark here for the control for thwarting and for the in-game versatility. I do not feel that whenever I am playing Nightcrawler that I have the flexibility to control the threat and flip down safely to do things in Alter Ego at will. So I cannot give him a check mark for this, so he only gets a 2 out of 3 for his overall thwarting. And then for the in-game versatility, I do feel like Nightcrawler needs to use Bamf as a basic defense to fully optimize his kit, and a lot of times chump blocking is just so much more efficient, but Nightcrawler really wants to use those Bamfs. So because of that, I do not want to give him a point here for the in-game versatility, so he only has a 1 out of 3 score for the overall versatility. So since Nightcrawler is missing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 boxes here, I will have to give him a B tier for my personal power ranking. Let me know what you guys think. I am a little bit shocked because whenever I was first playing him, not only was I having tons of fun, but he felt extremely powerful, and I thought that potentially he could have been an S tier hero. But as I played him more and more, I do feel like that he is more grounded, and there is nothing wrong with being a B tier hero. I love B tier heroes. This isn't like my favorites or anything like that. Nightcrawler is still probably one of my favorite heroes to play in Marvel Champions. I think that power-wise, he is a B tier hero for me. He is still a new hero, so there could be new information coming up to light, and if anything changes, I definitely will be updating this video. So definitely let me know down in the comments if you guys agreed or disagreed with this overall ranking, and I'll see you guys in the next video.